We love old cemeteries and churchyards, so come with us as we explore these places for the past. We are at Edinburgh's Western General Hospital today. Hospitals aren't my favourite place, so I'm escaping to somewhere that is one of my favourite places. You can probably guess what it is. And no, it's not Hogwarts School of Wizardry, or whatever it's called in Harry Potter. That's actually Edinburgh's Fettes College, which is a private school. As you can see, it's a very, very impressive building. But where we're headed is just a little bit further down the road. This is where I could do my dead centre of town joke, but I won't, because that's almost as bad as doing my people are dying to get in there joke, both of which are terrible. This is a really nice graveyard. It's quite old and urban, but it's got lots of interesting tombstones, and we're going to go and look at some of those today. So it's a guided tour of tombstones. And you saw that sign on the gate that said Commonwealth War Graves. That probably gives you a pretty good clue what we're here to look at, and also tell you an interesting story about the First World War. Well, hopefully interesting. I think it's interesting. Oh, but the first Commonwealth War grave that we've found, we do have to do some more research on. This is a guy from the Territorial Army, the Royal Signals, and he died in 1984. Now, you don't see many Commonwealth War graves that are that recent. So that's all the newer part of the graveyard down there, comparatively. But as you get up here, you're getting into the older bit, and that is where we are inevitably headed. If you're watching this channel, we don't have to tell you guys how much we do like these old graveyards, especially like this one when they're a little bit run down. But there's another one in Edinburgh, in Dalry, which is just amazing. It is, it's overgrown and it's so atmospheric. It's also full of beer cans and stuff, but it's still a very nice cemetery. And then of course there's Greyfriars Kirkyard, which we are definitely taking you to one day. You'll probably know the story of Greyfriars Bobby, but if not, well, that's something to look forward to. So there's another little Commonwealth War grave, but the bit that we're actually aiming for is over there, where you see lots of Commonwealth War graves, and their presence is explained by the fact that behind me there's a big hospital, and not far from here there is, well, I'm not going to tell you, we'll keep that as a bit of a surprise. It's a bit nice here, isn't it? There are some things on these gravestones that I have not seen before that are actually really interesting, because there's a guy called D. Bell from the Canadian Infantry. He died a long way from home. But also buried in the grave is John Bell and Elizabeth Bell, who died in the 1930s and the 1940s. Would that be his children or his wife? Again, don't know. We'll have to do a bit of research and find out. This family plot has had a new headstone, I'm guessing in 2012. But it goes back, because these are all old and military, a lot of these graves, with the military gentlemen at, I guess, the bottom and other people buried on layers on top. So there is John Miller, who's killed in action 25th September 1915. So that's a new tombstone in a very old graveyard. It looks slightly incongruous, but hello to you guys. And this is the thing about this graveyard that I find interesting, because here we see somebody from the Royal Air Force who died in 1918. Now, the Royal Air Force, before it was the Royal Air Force, was the Royal Flying Corps. If you go over here in 1917, there is a casualty from the Royal Flying Corps, and another one, and somebody from the Royal Air Force, and somebody from the Royal Flying Corps, and somebody from the Royal Air Force. You're getting the idea, lots and lots of airmen buried here. Now, this is a long way from the front line. The hospital's over there, as we said, but the reason that all these gentlemen, or most of these gentlemen, are buried here is Turnhouse Airport. Now called Edinburgh Airport, originally called RAF Turnhouse, which was a training station. So a lot of these guys died during their basic training when aviation was not quite as safe as it is now. So these guys were learning to fly innovative machinery that was brand new and probably not very safe. I mean, the Wright brothers had only flown a short time before. We'd gone from flying a few metres at Kitty Hawk to getting ready to go and fight in the skies over Belgium and France. So this is where they trained, and this is unfortunately where a lot of them ended up, as far as they ever made it. And for our friends across in Canada, there are some of your boys buried here as well. There's somebody from the Canadian Railway Troops who died in 1919, so survived the war and then died shortly afterwards. And here's somebody from the Canadian Forestry Corps. Now, these are regiments and divisions and corps that we've never heard of. The Canadian Forestry Corps, I don't know what their area of expertise would have been in the war. Cutting down wood to build things out and used for trench timbers and stuff, no idea. Again, we'll do a little bit of research and we'll put a wee note here to tell you who the Canadian Forestry Corps were, but hello Captain Weir. And just because it's a little bit different than the normal Commonwealth War Grave Commission headstones, here's a little nice headstone to George Mason, a second lieutenant of the Royal Flying Corps who was killed whilst flying. And the rain that was threatening to fall has decided to go away. It's now blue skies and sunshine again, so this is a lovely day to come and visit an old cemetery. We do like doing this, as you probably know, you might have noticed. And the reason that all those gravestones are here is over there, or what's left of it. That used to be the Victoria Hospital, which opened in 1894 and became the hospital for consumption, whatever consumption may have been. But it was also the hospital that was used during the war for war casualties, so they died there and they were buried here, so they didn't have to move them too far, I suppose. That's one bonus. Now that hospital is now long gone. It was much missed. It was closed down and people loved it. And Bex, although this will tell you how old she was, actually worked there very, very early in her career. It's all gone now, and like a lot of these old buildings, it's now all just houses. But over there, I can see something that looks like another war memorial, so we'll go and have a look at that before we go and look at the graves I was going to tell you about. Right, I'm not going to read you this board because I do that far too often, but there is a picture of what the inside of the hospital looked like. That was the second Scottish General Hospital that was just over there in Craigleith, and people commemorated by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission usually get their own little headstone, but here they've actually been put into multiple graves. There's 4 bodies per grave, but they still have their name and their regiment and a little dedication on the stone. But as you can see, there are quite a lot of stones. At this end there are a few individual headstones, but they're still lying down. I'm not quite sure why they've done it that way. Maybe something to do with space, or maybe to keep it all looking the same, because this is for the enlisted men. Now this is quite interesting. I've just figured something out. Go me. Up there, that line there is all First World War stones lying flat, and down here it's Second World War. There's a brigadier, so he's quite a high-ranking officer to be down here with the men. And because this is a Second World War graveyard, you have things here that you will not see in any of the war graves that we looked at previously. You have people with names like Hilda Patricia Miller and Violet Edna Burley, Elvira Teasdale, and just to give them all a shout out, Robina May Neal. These people were from the Auxiliary Territorial Service. They did backup work to the men out at the front and died serving their country. And the one gravestone that's standing up in this area is a guy called Frederick Fox, who died at the Castle Hospital in Edinburgh. Not quite sure what his story was, because he died in January 1933, so that's possibly why it's not a proper Commonwealth War Grave Commission headstone. He didn't die, wasn't eligible for one. Don't know, that is a guess. There aren't enough people called Euphemia today, so hello Euphemia. And I'm going to guess this is Euphemia's children, Robert Edward White, who died in 1915, and then William Kenneth White, who was killed in action 31st of July 1907. And while we're exploring this place, I've just seen a sign for another thing that I'm going to go and show you. Surprise, surprise, it's another grave, but this one is also quite interesting and it has got a story to tell. As this part doesn't seem to be quite as well kept as the rest of the graveyard. I don't know why they've just cut round the tombstones and not tidied up between them, but maybe it's like habitat for insects and stuff, I don't know. A lot of these parks now are being allowed to go a bit wild, so our little friends the honeybees can all live happy lives. Here's a guy from the Merchant Navy. His name was Art Earnshaw. He was a boy on the SS North Devon. He died on the 6th of July 1941, aged 14 years old. This kid was 14 and he gave his life. That's that makes you think about 14-year-olds today, doesn't it? I'm probably showing my age here and sound like a bit of a grumpy old bugger, but 14-year-olds today get upset if they don't have fast enough broadband. This is another one that I find quite interesting. Hopefully you are finding this a bit interesting as well. If not, let us know and we'll stop doing it. Well, we won't actually. So there's Marcus Gunn Sutherland, who was the 2nd Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders, and he's from Caithness. And he died in Edinburgh, and his sister, who was a nurse, who also died in Edinburgh, and of their children, who I'm guessing are not buried here, or maybe they are. Marcus died in Worksop, and Jeannie died at Eastbourne. So they've a family that have been scattered to the 4 corners of the UK. Another name that you don't see nearly enough of today, Nettie. Aye, Nettie. The last grave we're going to go and try and find today is that of a guy called Captain Clive Collet, who was a First World War fighter pilot. And he was credited with 11 kills, and he got the Military Cross, which is the 2nd highest order of gallantry behind the Victoria Cross. Well, he got it twice. And then he was shot in the hand and came back to do test flying from Turnhouse Airport, not far from here, as we said before. So Captain Collet was flying a captured German aeroplane out over the River Forth and crashed and died, unfortunately. So he was a proper hero and a very successful fighter pilot, and met his end in an accident, which was so often the case. These are always quite sad to see. A little child with a laughing look, aged 2 years and 9 months. It's all the job titles that people had. There's the Air Mechanic E, electrical possibly, Air Mechanic Second Class RN from HMS Sparrowhawk, and right next to a squaddy from the Queen's own Cameron Highlanders. I've been back up and I've double checked on the map and I still can't find Captain Collet's grave. It's got to be around here somewhere. I keep seeing Commonwealth war graves and none of them are the one I'm actually looking for, so no idea. I'll keep going, I'll find it, I will find it. Oh well, I've failed to find Captain Collet's grave, and Bex has just texted me to say that she's finished with what she was doing in the hospital, so he's here somewhere. We will come back and find him one day, but for now just take my word for it and imagine a war grave that's got his name on it with the MC and the bar. Oh, and there he is there. We've walked past him about 10 times and not actually noticed, and I've looked at this gravestone before and didn't twig that it was him. So there you are, Captain Collet. Yeah, that was a bit of a panic moment there. I put the drone up and it was all going well and I was getting some lovely pictures for you guys, and then I thought I'll put it up a little bit higher, it'll be fine. So I put it up a little bit higher and the wind took it, and next thing I knew it was 40 metres away. So I had to bang into sport mode to get it back as quickly as I possibly could. That was... I had visions of our little but expensive drone disappearing off into the distance.